Hello, today we are going to look at the eyeball. The eyeball is composed of 3 layers or 3 tunics, which we will look at first. We'll follow that up with a look at the cavities inside the eyeball and the flow of aqueous humor. So let's begin by looking at this outer layer or outer tunic of the eyeball. This is the eyeball removed from the orbit. We've also removed the extraocular muscles, which you can see in red there. We've also cut a window into this outer layer where you can see there are indeed 3 layers. But let's focus now on this outermost layer, the fibrous tunic, which is composed of this white layer called the sclera. The sclera is the majority of the fibrous layer in the posterior portion of the eyeball. It separates the eyeball from the other structures. The anterior portion is composed of the cornea. The cornea has specialized proteins that allow it to be transparent for the refraction of light energy, which is the penetration and bending of light as it enters the eye. The cornea is convex, so it's bulging outward, and this is the location where you would apply your contact lens. This is the 2 layers of the fibrous tunic. Let's next move to this innermost layer, which we can see here in the window as yellow. So here we have the innermost layer of the eye. We can see that the superior portion has been removed, and we can see this innermost layer, which is called the neural tunic. It covers the posterior portion of the eyeball. Notice that it does not extend fully anteriorly. This is because once light penetrates the eye, it's only going to land on the posterior aspect. This neural tunic is composed of many layers of neurons, hence the name. The most famous of these neurons are the rods, which transduce light energy into electrical signals that are perceived by the brain as gray tones, and cones that transduce light energy into electrical signals that are perceived by the brain as color. These neurons relay these electrical signals through the layers of the retina via axons that coalesce on the optic disc, which is this most posterior portion of the retina. Because only axons are located here, this is also known as the blind spot of the eye. The axons continue out of the eyeball in cranial nerve 2, the optic nerve, which we can see extending from the back of the eye. We can also see a yellow dot in the back of the eye. The yellow dot is called the macula lutea because this area does in fact turn yellow after death. The center of this has a depression called the fovea centralis. In the center of this spot is a depressed area where light energy can directly connect the cones. The cones are concentrated in this area, and this is the location of our clearest color vision. This concludes our discussion on the innermost layer of the neural tunic. Let's now move to the middle layer. Okay, here we have the middle layer of the eyeball. This is called the vascular layer because it has so many blood vessels running through it. It also has pigment. The pigment is designed to capture stray light so that we get a better image captured by the retina. This middle layer has 3 portions. The posterior layer here is shown in pink, and you can kind of see that we've literally just pulled the retina off to see this deeper layer. This is called the choroid. The choroid has many blood vessels that's supplying the inside of the eyeball. The anterior most portion of the uveal layer is called the iris. The iris is brown or blue or green in individuals because of pigments. It's what we think of as the color of the eyes. It has a central opening called the pupil. The pupil appears black because it does not reflect any light. The iris is subdivided into two smooth muscle layers, the inner sphincter pupillae, which constricts the pupil, and the outer dilator pupillae, which dilates or increases the diameter of the pupil. Finally, the middle portion of the uveal layer is known as the ciliary body. It has a beautiful scalloped appearance, as you can see here. And the ciliary body is mainly composed of a ciliary muscle that has suspensory ligaments that attaches it to this transparent crystalline lens. The ciliary muscle can pull on the lens and change its shape and thickness, which changes the focal point of the eyeball and allows you to focus on far versus near images. The ciliary body also contains specialized epithelium that allows secretion of aqueous humor. This completes our study of the three tunics, so I'd like to move now to the secretion of aqueous humor. For this, we need to be able to visualize the three spaces of the eyeball. So let's next move to the spaces of the eyeball. To understand the flow of aqueous humor, we must first understand the spaces within the eyeball. The posterior cavity, you can see here, is filled with a gel-like substance called the vitreous humor. Thus, the posterior cavity is sometimes also called the vitreous chamber. This gel-like substance helps to maintain the open structure of the eye so that light can be captured. The anterior cavity is divided into two parts. The posterior chamber is located between the brown iris and the crystalline lens. It's a very small space, and it contains specialized epithelium of the ciliary body. It produces aqueous humor here, and it flows through the pupil into the anterior chamber, which again is a very small space between the iris and the convex-shaped cornea. We have pulled the cornea away so that you can see this space a little bit better. From the anterior chamber, the aqueous humor flows through a trabecular meshwork that drains the fluid through the uveal layer and the sclera into lymphatic-like vessels called the canal of Schlemm, and the fluid is returned to blood vessels. In conclusion, we have covered the three tunics of the eyeball, the spaces inside the eyeball, the flow of aqueous humor. I hope this helps you to understand the three-dimensional aspects of the eyeball much better.